This ideology stems from the years of white liberals who have infused Marxist teachings into our schools and our churches. And as a result, the most profitable means of achieving in the culture is to be a victim. Welcome back to the Biblical Conservative channel. You see, I've adjusted the brand a little bit and went from Make Our Voice Known to the Biblical Conservative channel to more accurately reflect the viewpoint and the philosophy that I'm coming from. It's all biblical, and because it's biblical, some people label it conservative. So I married those two things together and call it the Biblical Conservative channel. Still the same truth. I fighting against the anti-God, anti-black, anti-family, anti-children, just anti-human spirit that is looking to prevail in this nation and in this land. So feel free to share with your friends, like, subscribe, hit that bell so you get the latest notifications as to when the most recent videos will be dropped. Just like this one. So recently I had a chance to listen to Thomas Sowell's YouTube video talking about the history of the Black culture. And as I listened to that video and reflected upon the things that were said in that, the more I realized that today there is a polarity that exists in the Black community. There is so much emphasis placed on the culture. It's all about the culture. I'm doing it for the culture. It seems like every video you see, every comment that a rapper or artist or an athlete makes is all about quote unquote the culture. We got to represent the culture. Yet I don't hear too many people pause and say, what is the culture and who is defining this culture that you're so gung-ho for? Who is defining this culture that you so have to represent for? Who is defining the culture that you're talking about? And you know, I argue that there is a subculture amongst native-born Black Americans. And this subculture is performative, secular, hyper-materialistic, and nihilistic. Some may call it the hip-hop culture. And to a degree, I can see why they call it that. Because most of hip-hop is full of derogatory, misogynistic, and hyper-materialistic lyrics. Most of hip-hop is full of that. Yeah, I see hip-hop as just a propaganda machine that is distributing this subculture to the masses. It is not the culture. Since the days of slavery, Black people, and especially Black men, have been judged based on performative measures. That's how the biggest and strongest Black men are selected to breed. Like animals, these men went from woman to woman, producing seed that they would not father. They produced children that they had no intentions of fathering. Because there's a difference between being a person that conceives a child with a woman and being a father. There's a difference between being a man and being a father. And that same spirit is what dominates the subculture amongst native-born Black Americans. The fact that 3 out of 4 Black children are born to single mothers in the Black community is astounding. Especially when you take a look at how that phenomenon has grown exponentially in the last 50 or so years. When native-born Black Americans choose to break out of the culture and think for themselves, they are labeled as coons, as sellouts, Uncle Tom, etc. Look at all the vitriol that Clarence Thomas is getting for his opinion, his rendering when it comes to the overturn of Roe v. Wade. All kinds of nasty insults are being hurled his way simply because he chose to think for himself. There's a strong undercurrent to make sure that all Black people stay in your place. And you know, this is what white people used to say, oh, you're getting too uppity. That's an uppity Negro right there. We need to put him in his place. And that same sentiment, that same idea is permeating in the black community. It has been transferred from the segregationists, from the true racists, to black people. And that leads me to the group I believe is responsible for this subculture, white liberals. White liberals benefit the most from ensuring that the subculture of victimization of black people remains intact. I mean, you hear it when it comes to the overturn of Roe v. Wade. Oh, it's a racist decision that was made. Everything has to revolve and return to race because it keeps them in power and keeps black people in bondage. But we are not victims. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. And all the social programs of the 60s combined with the feminist movement and the LGBTQ movement has destroyed the traditional black family. I'll say that again. All of the social programs of the 60s, the Great Society programs of LBJ, all those things, even the Civil Rights Bill that was passed in 1964, the Civil Rights Acts of 1964, combined with the feminist movement and the LGBTQ movement, has destroyed the traditional black family. It has. No more is it taboo for a woman to have multiple children by multiple men. Back in the day, that was something that was shameful, that was looked down upon. Now, that's something that's regular. That's expected in a lot of communities. Men can have children all across the globe. Look at Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon has children by so many different women. But instead of him being pillared for his lack of self-control, he is celebrated by the culture. Nick Cannon is celebrated by the culture.
I don't know. It could be, this is what I said. If you thought the numbers I put up in 2021 was wait till we get to it. You know, there's a lot of kids last year.
Oh my God.
He's not a simp, if you will. He's going around laying with all kind of women, producing all kind of babies, and he has no intention of truly fathering those children the way they should be fathered, not parenting those children the way they should be parented. But yet he's being celebrated. The culture celebrates that kind of behavior that leads to destruction. It celebrates behavior that leads to destruction. It frowns upon biblical masculinity and calls it the patriarchy. This ideology stems from the years of white liberals who have infused Marxist teachings into our schools and our churches. And as a result, the most profitable means of achieving in the culture is to be a victim. Victimization is the calling card of the culture. But we are not victims. The purpose of this channel is to encourage and motivate and activate, and especially to tell black men no. Victimization may be the calling card of the culture, but here you will learn that you are not a victim. You are empowered for greatness, that God has a bigger and better plan for you, that there is something better than being a victim. There is something better than being the tool that white liberals use to destroy this land. And that is knowing who you are, that is taking on personal responsibility, that is ensuring that you're not laying around and producing babies that you have no intention of fathering. That means being responsible for children that you have fathered. That means being a parent, being a man, rising up, stepping up to the plate, and being the men that God has called us to be. That is what we must do in order to get our communities back to where they should. Now, I know we haven't always had the greatest role models. A lot of us come from broken homes. A lot of us come without the image of a true man in the house, a man that we can follow. We don't have that image to look to. And that's where God steps in. That's where God becomes the father that we truly need. And that's why God provides men of integrity that we can follow. And we must do that, especially for this younger generation, because they're growing up. 3 out of 4 of these children are growing up without a man in the home. And so we, as godly men, as biblical men, must show these men how to be men, period. Because everything else is telling them how not to be a man. So we must tell them how to be a biblical man. Because we are not victims. We are not victims. We are empowered for greatness. Thank you so much for liking your comments and subscribing to the channel. Please share this with your friends. Smash that like button. Smash the subscription bell. Share this with everybody you know. We're trying to make sure people understand that they're not victims, that they are empowered for greatness, and all this stuff that's out here that's telling them otherwise is false. and will not benefit them in the end. So please, I appreciate that. Share that.